When my family showed up at my door on my birthday, I didn't open it. I just stood behind the curtain and watched them knock. I know that sounds heartless, but if you knew what they did to me, you'd understand. Stay with me for a few minutes, and I'll tell you everything. Maybe then you'll see why I chose silence over forgiveness. I stood there, frozen, holding my breath as they knocked again and again. My mom's voice floated through the door, soft and sweet, the same voice that once comforted me when I was little. "Nora, honey, we brought your favorite cake," she called out. My dad laughed in the background, and my brother Caleb said something about how I was probably still mad. They were right. I was still mad. But it wasn't just anger. It was heartbreak, disappointment, and something far deeper. I could see their faces through the small gap in the curtain. They were smiling, holding gifts and balloons, pretending like nothing had happened. My heart ached so badly that I thought it might give out. I pressed my hand against my chest to keep it steady. A year ago, on this very same day, I had been the happiest I'd ever been. I'd walked into my parents' house, laughing, surrounded by family. Back then, I thought I was loved, really loved. I thought family meant protection. But that illusion died last year. Now, as I watched them from behind the glass, I felt the old pain returning, the moment I found out what they'd done. My mother, who raised me to be kind. My brother, my childhood best friend. And even Eli, the man I thought I'd marry. All of them, smiling now as if they hadn't shattered me. My vision blurred. I blinked hard, fighting the tears. They didn't deserve to see me cry anymore. The knocking slowed down. My dad sighed loudly. I could hear my mom whisper something like, "Maybe she's not home." But she knew I was. My car was right outside. My lights were on. I knew she could feel me standing behind that door. But I still didn't move. I watched them turn away, one by one, their laughter fading into the cold air. And as they walked to their car, I felt both sadness and relief wash over me. Sadness for what we once were, and relief that I finally had the strength to let it go. When their car disappeared down the street, I leaned against the wall and took a deep breath. The silence inside my house felt heavy, but peaceful. I whispered to myself, "Not this time, Nora. You don't owe them anything anymore." And just like that, I knew. The door I didn't open wasn't just the one in front of me. It was the door to my past. And I was done walking through it. Last year on my birthday, everything seemed perfect at first. My parents had gathered a few close friends and relatives for a small surprise dinner at their house. The kitchen smelled like my mom's roasted chicken, and the living room glowed with soft lights and laughter. I remember walking in, everyone shouting, "Surprise," and my heart filling with warmth. I had just turned 27, and I thought life was good. My fiancé, Eli, had texted earlier, saying he'd be late because of work. I missed him, but I wasn't upset. He always tried his best to make me happy. Caleb, my older brother, kept glancing at his phone that night. He looked distracted, tense even. I teased him about being addicted to work messages, but he just gave me a weak smile and said, something like that. I didn't think much of it. It was my birthday. I wanted to enjoy it. We ate, laughed, and for a few hours it really did feel like home. My mother, Ruth, looked so proud as she handed me a cake she'd baked herself. My father gave one of his awkward toasts about how fast his little girl had grown. Everyone clapped, and I remember thinking, this is what love looks like. But love doesn't hide secrets. After the guests left, I stayed behind to help my mom clean up. The night had grown quiet, and the warm laughter from earlier now felt like a dream. I went upstairs to grab my jacket from the guest room, and that's when I heard them, my mother and Caleb, talking in the kitchen. Their voices were low, urgent. "Does she still not know?" my mom whispered. "No, and she can't," Caleb replied quickly. "If Nora finds out about Eli and Mara, she'll lose it. You saw how much she loves him." My heart stopped. My hand tightened on the railing. I thought I'd misheard. Mara, Caleb's wife? My sister-in-law, the woman who hugged me just hours ago and told me how lucky I was to have Eli? She deserves the truth, my mom said softly. "No, Mom. It'll destroy her," Caleb snapped. They both said it was a mistake. "It's over." The words hit me like knives. They both said it was a mistake. That meant it was real. It happened. I felt sick. My knees trembled, and I had to cover my mouth to keep from making a sound. My fiancé, the man I trusted with my heart, had slept with my brother's wife. And my whole family knew. They'd smiled at me all night, pretending everything was fine. I slipped out of the house quietly, the cool air biting my face. I couldn't cry, not yet. I just kept walking, trying to understand how people who claimed to love me could watch me celebrate in ignorance. That was the night everything I believed about family and love broke into pieces. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat in my car outside Eli's apartment, staring at the building where I used to feel safe. My hands were shaking, my chest tight with anger and disbelief. When I finally gathered the courage to go in, the rain had already started, soft and steady, like the sky was warning me. He opened the door with that familiar smile, the one that used to melt me. "Nora? It's late, what's?" I cut him off. "How long, Eli?" He frowned, confused. "How long what?" I stepped inside, my voice trembling but sharp. "How long have you been sleeping with Mara?" His face drained of color. He froze, lips parting, eyes darting around like he could find the right lie hiding somewhere in the room. "Nora, what are you talking about? Who told you that? Don't you dare lie to me," I snapped. "I heard Mom and Caleb talking. They knew everything. They said it was a mistake." "A mistake, Eli? Is that what you call it?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair, pacing. "It wasn't supposed to happen," he said quietly. "It was one night. We were drunk. It didn't mean anything." His words made my stomach twist. "Didn't mean anything? You destroyed me, Eli. You destroyed my family." He reached out to touch my arm, but I stepped back. "Please, Nora," he whispered. "I love you. I never stopped loving you." "Love?" I laughed bitterly. "You don't get to use that word anymore." That's when I heard the front door open. My parents were there. My mom must have called him when she realized I'd left the house. She rushed toward me, her voice soft and trembling. "Nora, please calm down. We can fix this." "Fix this?" I turned to her, my voice breaking. "You all knew. You watched me plan a wedding with a man who betrayed me, and you said nothing." My father stayed silent, his face heavy with shame. My mother tried again. "We just didn't want to break the family apart." Tears burned in my eyes. "You already did." For a moment, no one said a word. The sound of rain hitting the windows filled the silence. I looked at them, the people who were supposed to protect me, and I realized there was nothing left to save. I grabbed my coat and walked out. My mother called after me, begging me to come back, but I didn't stop. I stepped into the cold night, the rain soaking through my clothes, but I didn't care. I didn't have a plan or a place to go. I just knew I couldn't stay. Not with them. Not with him. That was the night Nora Caldwell died, and the woman who walked away decided she'd never look back. A year passed, but some days it still felt like that night had just happened. The betrayal still lived in small corners of my heart, quiet but alive. After leaving everything behind, I moved to a small town an hour away, where no one knew my name or my story. I found a tiny apartment above a bakery, the kind that always smelled like fresh bread in the mornings. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I got a job at a local florist shop run by an old woman named Clara. She never asked too many questions, and I was grateful for that. My days were simple, watering plants, arranging roses, wrapping bouquets for people who still believed in love. Some days that hurt, but other days, it reminded me that maybe not everyone lies. The first few months were the hardest. I would wake up in the middle of the night thinking I heard Eli's voice, or that my mother was calling. But there was only silence. Over time, that silence became a friend. It taught me how to breathe again, how to live for myself, not for others. I didn't talk to anyone from my old life. Not Caleb, not my parents, not even old friends who tried to check in. My phone number changed. My name was taken off family group chats. It was like I had vanished, and honestly, that's what I wanted. Then one morning, as I sorted through bills and catalogs, I found a letter in my mailbox. No return address, but I recognized my mother's handwriting immediately, neat, graceful, and painfully familiar. My stomach tightened as I opened it. Inside was a single page. "Nora, we miss you. It's been a year. Please come home for dinner on your birthday. Let's be a family again. Love, Mom." There was no apology. No mention of the lies, the betrayal, or the nights I cried alone. Just a request, like nothing had ever happened. I read it over and over, waiting to feel something: anger, sadness, forgiveness. But all I felt was emptiness. They wanted me to return, sit at their table, and pretend again. Pretend the past didn't exist. Pretend I hadn't been broken. I folded the letter and placed it on the counter. That night, I sat by the window, watching the lights of the small town fade into the quiet dark. It hit me that my birthday was coming again. 1 full year since everything had fallen apart. I wasn't going back. not to eat dinner with ghosts who only wanted peace for themselves. But I couldn't just ignore it either. Something inside me wanted them to feel what I'd felt, to understand silence the way I had. So I made a decision. I wasn't going home. But this time they would come to me. I stared at my phone for a long time before typing the message. My hands didn't shake this time. They used to, whenever I thought about them. But now there was only a strange stillness inside me. I typed, erased, and typed again before finally sending it. Dinner at my place. 7 p.m. I'd like to talk. No name, no explanation. Just that. It didn't take long for the replies to come in. My mother's text arrived first. "Oh, Nora, we're so happy to hear from you. We'll be there." A few minutes later, Caleb replied with a short, "We'll come." Even Eli sent one. "I'll be there if you'll have me." I almost laughed when I read it. If only they knew what kind of dinner this would be. That morning, I went to the market and bought everything I needed: candles, fresh flowers, ingredients for dinner, and a cake. I told myself it wasn't revenge. It wasn't anger either. It was closure. By afternoon, the apartment smelled like roasted herbs and vanilla. I set the table carefully, using the dishes I'd been saving for special occasions. I arranged white lilies in the center and placed the folded napkins just right. Every detail was perfect, almost too perfect. I looked around and realized the scene looked peaceful. Warm light, soft music playing in the background, the kind of setting meant for forgiveness. But that wasn't what tonight was about. My calmness didn't come from peace. It came from knowing I finally had control. At 6:30, I changed into a simple navy dress and looked at myself in the mirror. I didn't look like the same woman who had cried herself to sleep a year ago. My eyes were steadier now, colder maybe, but sure. When the clock struck 7, the doorbell rang. I opened the door to see my parents standing there, smiling nervously, holding a bottle of wine. My mother's eyes watered instantly. "Oh, sweetheart, it's so good to see you." Behind them were Caleb and Mara, holding hands, and then Eli, standing slightly apart, his face unreadable. For a moment, I could almost pretend this was normal, a family reunion. But I didn't. "Come in," I said softly. They stepped inside, glancing around, clearly surprised by how beautiful everything looked. My father murmured, "You've done well for yourself." I smiled faintly. I had to learn how to start over. We sat at the table. They talked awkwardly at first, trying to fill the silence. My mother commented on the food, my brother laughed too loudly, and Eli kept his eyes on his plate. I served them all, pouring the wine they'd brought. I didn't drink. My heart was steady now, calm and ready. They thought this dinner was about forgiveness. But tonight wasn't about healing old wounds. It was about reminding them that I hadn't forgotten how they made them. They sat around my table like strangers pretending to be family. My mother kept smiling too much, her voice too bright, as if she could talk the tension away. My father cleared his throat every few minutes, glancing between me and Eli like he was waiting for someone to say what we were all thinking. Caleb laughed nervously at nothing in particular, while Mara stared down at her plate, tracing the edge of her glass without saying a word. I smiled politely, keeping my tone gentle. "I'm glad you all came," I said, pouring the wine into their glasses. "It's been a long time." My mother sighed with relief. "Yes, darling. Too long. I knew you'd come around eventually." I didn't answer. I poured a glass for each of them, but left mine empty. "Sorry," I said. "I've stopped drinking." Eli looked up at me for the first time. His eyes were tired, dark circles showing the weight of guilt he carried. "You look different," he said quietly. I smiled faintly. "I guess pain does that to people." The words hung in the air like smoke. Caleb shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "So, what made you decide to invite us?" he asked, forcing a grin. I leaned back in my chair, my hands folded neatly in my lap. "I thought it was time," I said softly. "Time to talk. Time to stop pretending." Mara's fork slipped from her hand and clattered onto her plate. She didn't pick it up. My mother glanced at her, then at me, her smile fading. "Pretending?" she repeated, her voice suddenly cautious. I nodded slowly. "Yes. Pretending that what happened didn't happen. Pretending we're still a family." No one spoke. Even the soft hum of the background music seemed to fade away. My heart was calm, too calm. For a moment, I could see the reflection of each of them in the polished surface of the wine glasses, their faces pale and uneasy. Eli finally spoke. "Nora, please. That night." "Don't," I interrupted, my voice steady. "Don't call it a mistake. I've heard that word enough. You all had a choice. Every single one of you. My father cleared his throat again, his voice low. Nora, we didn't mean for things to. To what? To destroy me. I said quietly. You didn't mean for me to find out? Or you didn't mean to feel guilty? No one looked at me now. My mother's eyes glistened, her hands twisting nervously. Caleb's jaw clenched, and Mara's eyes filled with tears. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping the floor. I invited you tonight because I wanted you to taste what silence feels like. What it's like to sit in a room full of people who smile at you while hiding everything that's killing you inside. They all stared at me, stunned. I smiled one last time, cold and calm. So please, enjoy your wine. For a long moment, no one spoke. The air was thick with tension, the kind that made every breath feel heavy. I watched them, my parents, my brother, my ex-fiancé, and the woman who had pretended to be my sister. Their faces were a mix of confusion and guilt. I could almost hear their hearts beating. I placed my phone gently on the table, the screen glowing faintly. Do you want to know why I invited you here tonight? I asked softly. My mother hesitated. Nora, please, let's not. I raised a hand, stopping her mid-sentence. No, Mom. You've all talked enough. It's my turn now. Eli looked down, his fingers tightening around his glass. Mara wouldn't meet my eyes. Caleb tried to look calm, but I could see the panic flicker in his expression. I took a slow breath. I know everything, I said, my voice steady. Every secret you thought you buried. Every lie you told to protect yourselves. My father frowned. Nora, we were just trying to. Protect me? I interrupted, my tone sharp but quiet. Is that what you call it? You watched me plan a wedding. You let me stand beside the woman who was sleeping with my fiancé, and not one of you said a word. The room went silent. I leaned forward slightly, my eyes locked on Eli. Do you remember the night you told me you were working late? You weren't. You were at the Red Oak Hotel, room 214. I know because Mara texted you that night, saying she'd be there first. Mara's face went pale. Nora, how could you possibly? I picked up my phone and pressed play. The sound of their voices filled the room, muffled but clear enough. A recorded phone call. Eli's voice. Mara's laugh. Their words slicing through the quiet like knives. Eli's hands began to shake. My mother covered her mouth, tears forming in her eyes. Caleb's jaw tightened, his knuckles white against the table. I recorded everything, I continued. The messages, the calls, even the night Mom told Caleb to keep it quiet for the family's sake. I have it all. A full year of silence doesn't erase evidence. They all sat there, stunned. No one dared move. I stood slowly, pushing my chair back. You know what the worst part was? I said quietly. It wasn't the betrayal. It was the pretending. Sitting at dinners like this, smiling, acting like we were still a family. I looked at each of them. My mother's trembling lips, my father's shame, Caleb's guilt, Eli's broken stare. Now, I said, picking up my glass of untouched wine, you finally know how it feels to sit at a table full of people pretending to love you. And with that, I turned and walked away, leaving them in the silence they created. The room fell silent as Nora's words lingered in the air, heavy and sharp as broken glass. Her family stared at her, wide-eyed, pale, breathless. Caleb's lips trembled, Mara's hands gripped her glass, and Eli leaned forward as if begging the air for mercy. But Nora didn't flinch. She stood calm and poised, her voice steady like someone who had already cried all her tears long ago. I'm not here for forgiveness, she said softly, glancing at each of them. I'm here for the truth to finally have witnesses. Her mother tried to speak, but Nora raised a hand. Don't. Not yet. She reached into her small purse on the counter and pulled out her phone, pressing a single button. A faint light blinked red. This conversation, she said, has been recorded since the moment you walked in. Caleb blinked. Recorded? For what? Nora smiled. The kind of smile that wasn't happiness but victory disguised as grace. For the lawyer, she said simply. Everything you've confessed tonight, every word, every silence, is evidence. Eli stood abruptly. You can't do that. You can't just. I can, Nora interrupted. And I already did. Because while you were busy signing those new investment contracts using my inheritance money, I was busy reclaiming every cent legally. The accounts you thought were yours are frozen. The property under your name? Reverted. You won't get away with it this time. Mara dropped her fork, her voice cracking. Nora, please. We were desperate. Caleb told me. Oh, I know what Caleb told you, Nora cut in, her eyes locked on her brother. He said I wouldn't notice. That I was too broken to fight back. But you forgot something, Mara. Broken people build sharp edges. Her father finally spoke, voice trembling. Nora, we made mistakes. But we're still family. You can't just destroy us. Nora's gaze softened for the first time. Destroy you, she whispered. No, Dad. I'm just showing you what destruction feels like from my side of the table. There was a pause, then she continued, quiet and deliberate. You'll each be hearing from my lawyer. Caleb, you'll find the contracts void. Mara, I'm sorry, but your husband already signed the divorce papers I sent him last week. He just didn't realize they were legally binding. And as for you, Mom and Dad, you're no longer part of my estate. My new will ensures that. Her mother broke into tears, whispering her name over and over. Nora stood there, unmoved, her hands resting on the back of her chair. I didn't invite you for peace, she said finally, voice trembling but strong. I invited you for closure. Then she turned off the recorder, set it down on the table, and walked toward the door. As she reached it, she looked back one last time, not with anger but with finality. This, she said softly, is the last dinner we'll ever have. The evening light spilled softly through the blinds, painting golden stripes across Nora's quiet living room. The same date glowed on her calendar, her birthday. But this year there were no candles, no balloons, no voices pretending everything was fine. Only silence, and the faint hum of the wind brushing against the window. Then a knock. It was gentle at first, then firmer, 3 steady taps, the kind she knew by heart. Nora froze. Her hands trembled slightly as she peeked through the curtain. There they were, her family. All of them. Standing on her porch with awkward smiles and store-bought gifts. Her mother clutched a cake box, the kind with cheap frosting and plastic roses. Her father held a bouquet of lilies, her least favorite flower, but the only one he ever remembered to bring. Caleb stood beside Mara, his arm looped tightly around her, guilt written across both their faces. Even Eli was there, head down, holding a small gift bag like a child who didn't know what else to do. Nora's heart twisted. She hadn't seen them in a year. Not since the dinner, not since the truth had shattered whatever remained of their lies. She had thought she was ready for anything. But now, seeing them again, she felt that old ache, that small, buried hope that maybe they'd finally changed. Her mother looked toward the window, voice breaking as she called. Nora, honey, it's your birthday. We just want to see you. Just for a minute. Nora pressed a hand to her mouth to stifle a sob. Tears slipped down her cheeks, silent and unstoppable. She wanted to run to the door, to open it, to believe them. But then her eyes caught the faint reflection of her own face in the glass. Strong, calm, older. The face of someone who had survived. She remembered every empty chair, every cold glance, every moment they made her feel invisible. She remembered the laughter that continued even when she had cried. She remembered the year she spent rebuilding herself, learning how to breathe without their approval. Her father's voice joined in now, softer than she remembered. We made mistakes, Nora. We were foolish. Please give us one more chance. But their words felt hollow, too light to carry the weight of what they had done. Forgiveness couldn't be a performance at the door. Nora took a step back, closing the curtain with trembling fingers. She turned off the lights, leaving the house in peaceful dimness. Outside, the knocking slowed, then stopped. The sound of retreating footsteps faded into the cool night. Nora leaned against the wall, breathing deeply. Her tears fell not from hate, but from acceptance. She whispered to the quiet, I forgive you, but I don't have to let you in. And for the first time, her birthday didn't hurt. It simply felt free. The night grew quiet again after the sound of the car faded down the street. The air outside was cool, soft, and still, the kind of silence that follows storms. Nora stood in the center of her living room, her heart beating slow and steady. For a long moment, she didn't move. She just listened. No more knocking. No more voices calling her name. Just peace. She walked back to the table where a single cupcake sat, small and simple, with one white candle standing at its center. She'd bought it earlier that day from the little bakery near the flower shop where she worked. It wasn't fancy, but it was hers. There were no fake smiles, no forced laughter, no heavy silence hiding secrets. Just her, the flicker of the candlelight, and the soft hum of her own breath. She picked up the matchbox and struck a flame. The tiny spark came alive, dancing between her fingers before touching the candlewick. The light glowed warm against her face, reflecting in her eyes. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like crying. She smiled faintly and whispered, Happy birthday, Nora. Her voice was quiet but steady, not broken, not uncertain. Just calm. She thought about everything she had survived. The betrayal. The tears. The endless nights wondering why the people she loved most could hurt her that way. But sitting there now, she finally understood. She didn't lose them. She let them go. She ran her fingers along the edge of the table. The same table where she had once served dinner to those who pretended to love her. It was empty now, and somehow that emptiness felt full. Full of peace. Full of self-respect. Full of quiet strength. She could still see their faces in her mind. Her mother's regret, Caleb's guilt, Eli's shame. But they didn't haunt her anymore. They were just people she used to know, ghosts from a story that had finally ended. The candle burned lower, the wax melting slowly down its side. Nora took a deep breath and closed her eyes. "You did it," she murmured to herself. "You made it through." And she had. She wasn't the same girl who once begged for love that never came. She wasn't the woman who cried herself to sleep, wondering what she did wrong. She was someone new, someone who chose peace over pain, truth over illusion, herself over everyone else. When the candle's flame grew small, she leaned forward and gently blew it out. The smoke curled upward, soft and silent, disappearing into the air. The room grew dark again, but it didn't feel empty. It felt safe. Nora smiled in the quiet darkness and whispered one last time, not to anyone else, but to herself, freedom. That's my gift this year. And with that, she sat back, wrapped in stillness, finally, beautifully. Freed. Do you think Nora made the right choice by closing the door and walking away from her family for good, or should she have given them another chance? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if stories like this move you, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next one.